The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
And welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. I don't know what happened there. We were supposed to have what we call a bumper, but the bumper didn't come through, so here we are. Kind of raw, kind of hard, but that's live radio for you. Welcome to the X-Zone. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And if you'd like to get a hold of us, you know, we're very accessible here. You can send an email to studio@xzoneradiotv.com. You can, chat with us on all the social medias. Our chat is X-Zone Radio TV. And our website, where you can listen to the X-Zone, find out what we've done in the past, what we're doing today, and what we're going to be doing in the future at xzoneradiotv.com. Got a great first guest for us tonight, X-Zone Nation. Roberta Grimes is her name. And we've had the pleasure of having Roberta on the show a number of times. And she's an Austin-based business attorney who has had two extraordinary experiences of light in childhood that prompted her to spend decades studying nearly 200 years of abundant and consistent communications from the dead. Using this material, the principles of quantum mechanics, and the latest developments in consciousness research, eventually she was able to figure out what her experiences of light had been. And beyond that, she learned so many details about what happens at and after death, and how the entire process works in the in a 2010 book that she published, The Fun of Dying. Find out what really happens next. Joining me now from the beautiful state of Texas, the one and only Roberta Grimes. And Roberta, welcome back to the X-Zone.
Oh, I'm so glad to be with you, Rob. Have a happy evening. I mean, this is going to be fun.
Yes. You know, you and I are the only two people who can have fun talking about death.
Well, if more people knew about it, everybody would be happy talking about it.
Why do you think there's such a misconception about death? Like, you've done an in-depth study on it. You're the author of fascinating books that are read worldwide. And it seems that more and more people want to know about death. They want to know what the truth is, and not what the religious dogma is, but what the truth is. And in your opinion, Roberta, how different is the truth from the dogma?
Well, it's 180 degrees different. I mean, the death process and what happens after death has very little resemblance to any religion's ideas that I've ever seen, and I majored in religion in college. And, of course, science is absolutely, utterly clueless about any of this. So we've got to do the research ourselves, and when we do it, we find that death, for most of us, is the very best time of our lives. It's wonderful, happy, fun, exciting, and what comes after death is even better.
Let me ask you quickly, what does happen after death?
After death, our minds tune. If your mind is a TV set, there are a whole lot of channels right in the room with you, and right now you're tuned to that body on this level of reality, which we think is the lowest vibratory level, lowest channel. And when you die, your mind, that TV set, just tunes to a slightly higher channel, and it picks up a whole new solid reality, just as you'd pick up a new TV station, right in the same place. Isn't that easy?
Yeah, it is. But what happened in your life that made you go on this fascinating journey?
When I was 8 years old, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was sure there was no God. And I was a good little Christian child. That was really scary. I was terrified. In the midst of my fear, there was a flash of white light in the room, and a voice said, "You wouldn't know what it is to have me if you didn't know what it is to be without me. I will never leave you again." Of course, when you're 8, everything surprises you, so nothing really does. Just thought at the time it was handy. If you forget there's a God, they remind you, and I went back to sleep. But it's in the nature of these experiences that they remain in your mind. That was more than 60 years ago, and it still feels like it just happened last night.
You go out, you talk to people, you meet people. What are their comments about the wonderful books you write? Do they find it comforting? Do they find them enlightening? Do they find them contrary to their religious beliefs?
Yes, to all of those things. What's been fun for me and really amazing is that when The Fun of Dying came out just 6 years ago, most people had no clue about any of this stuff. I'd be speaking before a group and all the faces would be blank. The questions would be foolish. People wanted to know, but it was like they had no basis for understanding anything. But now, different groups, different places, wherever I speak, everybody is aware of what's going on. They're smiling, they're nodding, the questions are wonderful. I mean, we really are seeing the consciousness of the planet rise around us. It's incredible to me.
That is so amazing that people are actually taking a serious look at what happens after we've spent this second in time, not even a second of time, here on this planet in this existence. What is in your opinion, the most concrete proof that life does continue after death?
Oh, well, there's so much of it. We hear from people all the time who we used to think were dead, and they give us such validation of who and what they are. If you have one of those experiences, one case where someone is able to tell us things about his lifetime, and there's no way it could have been known by anybody else, he's survived. We have millions of those now. I mean, Dr. Gary Schwartz in 2002 published the afterlife experiments. He had double and triple tested the best mediums. Every single one of them was accurate in the 90s. I mean, they didn't know who they were reading. The person being read didn't know who was reading them. There was no communication allowed between them, and still they would get things almost 100% correct over and over again.
Wow.
That's not coincidence. The odds are really in the multiple millions to one against even happening once, and it's happened so many times. The odds are in the billions to one against that being chance. I mean, it's just foolish for anybody not to look at the evidence and see what's really going on. My first understanding that this was real came when I read decades. I spent maybe 2 decades reading afterlife communications received before 1950, mainly through deep trance mediums, hundreds and hundreds of them. But they were all talking about the same place, the same physics, the same process, the same pastimes, the same way they dressed, the same thing. They said the same things about judgment. Everything was the same across all those hundreds of communications, and they were received, most of them in the eastern U.S. and the southern Great Britain. It's not possible for them to be the same if it's not true. I mean, that's just absurd. Even, we're past the point where anybody who is open and honest can actually look at this evidence and doubt it at all. You can't doubt it. The only people who are still, quote, skeptical are the people who don't want it to be true, and they will not look at it seriously. That's it.
I mean, here you are, a nice little Catholic girl.
Right.
And what you're saying goes against what theology would like us to believe.
Well, I had the great good fortune of majoring in early Christian history in college. I mean, I did it primarily because I was still trying to figure out what that light and that voice had been. But I have to say, when you look at how Christianity developed, how the Bible was put together, you no longer feel that it's anything that was God's divine word.
Yeah.
I can now demonstrate and prove that the words of Jesus, the words he spoke, are absolutely correct. He knew things that he couldn't have known if he hadn't been who he said he was. But there is not a single dogma of Christianity that's right. They're all made up.
So how many stages are there when it comes to the dying process?
Well, stages. Most people, the body's got to be weakened. People will say to me, dying's not fun, I've got cancer. No, you're right. It isn't fun till you get to the last bit where you're actually starting to die. But then there's really no more pain. People who have been in comas often wake up and start talking to people. They'll begin to see their loved ones in the room, people they had thought were dead, who have come to rescue them, to take them, home. It starts to be fun then. And leaving the body, people say, is an extremely pleasurable experience, as you can imagine, because you've been imprisoned in a boat anchor, that old dying body, and suddenly now you feel young, healthy, you can float in the air, you feel just light and happy, and you've got your loved ones. There's Mom, and there's my dog from when I was 10. I mean, it's the best experience you can imagine. People actually say it almost feels orgasmic to leave your body. It's a wonderful thing.
So why do you think, or why do you believe that we are born, we come to this realm, we come to this reality, we go through all this misery of being in this body, being anchored, like you said, and then we pass on and we're released again?
Why do we do it?
Yeah.
Well, the dead tell us why, and Jesus in the Gospels tells us why, and they give us both the same answer. We are here to grow spiritually. We hunger to raise our spiritual vibration, and you can't do it very well there. This is like a gym. We come to a spiritual gym. We strip our mind down. We only bring part of our mind with us, just like you'd wear your shorts in the gym. And we get on those machines to strengthen our spiritual muscles. One machine might have been your awful first spouse. Another might be the death of a child. All these things that are supposed to be bad are actually meant just to strengthen us spiritually. We chose them. We eagerly get into this lifetime to use them because what we want to do is to raise our spiritual vibration. It's that simple.
I use the same analogy that, when people are going through life and they have failures, many people get annoyed, they get off track, they get depressed. And I've always believed that a failure is a lesson in success.
Yeah, they've done some studies of successes and failures. They've found one big difference between the successes and the failures in life. The people who succeeded just kept trying.
Exactly.
People failed the same number of times, apparently, on average.
Yeah.
But some gave up, and those were the failures. Some kept going, and those were the successes.
What has been the hardest part for you being an author in doing your books? The fact that I can't be doing it 24/7, it's like an addiction. I love doing this work, and I think of the work in the broadest sense. I mean, I talk to people. I have to travel, of course, sometimes to do that. I hear every day from people through my website and commenting on my blog, and I answer all those comments. I mean, I love doing this work. But, you got a life. I have grandchildren. I still have legal clients. So that's the hard part, trying to balance things, I think. So let me just ask you when it comes to dying, the end process, what happens next? What do we do? Like, do we have any idea of what happens once we leave the body? Our spirit is free. What happens based on the information from the other side that you've had?
Well, here's the problem. When you're born, you kind of have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
That's about as clueless as you are when you leave your body. There's a reason why our dead loved ones come gather around us and try to get our attention before we leave the body, and that reason is we have no idea what to do next. There's a natural tendency of your vibratory rate to rise once you're free of the body. That happens naturally, but we have to be led. We have to be brought through. There's the lowest realms just above the level of vibration of that's the material universe. The lowest realms are unpleasant. We've got to be escorted through them and brought to the place where we're going to enter the afterlife. People who there's a danger here because people who are perhaps dying too young or it's a surprise will often have just to witness their loved ones being traumatized by the fact that the body has died. And they'll want to say, but I'm fine, I'm here, look at me, I'm terrific, I never felt better. But if they do that, they'll lower their vibratory rate, they won't be able to see their dead loved ones anymore. And that's how we make ghosts. You can become stuck out of time and unable to do anything and not even realizing what's happened to you. So if there's any advice I would give to your listeners, it's when you leave your body, go with those who came to take you away. Don't attempt to contact your loved ones around the bed, no matter how upset they are. You'll be able to help them once you get where you're going, but there's a real risk you can be stuck if you're not careful, if you don't leave as soon as possible.
You and I were talking before we went to air about the title of your book, and you know the title of the book that I was talking to you about was The Fun of Dying, which you have published right now. It's available. And The Fun of Staying in Touch, which is also available, and you have a brand new one coming out very shortly, The Fun of Growing Forever. But you were saying that these were not the titles that you wanted. The titles came from somewhere else. And isn't it true that most of your writing and most of the material from your books is actually channeled?
Yeah, I have to admit it now.
Well, I think that's great.
It's hard to admit it, though. I mean, I'm a lawyer. I thought I was like a serious researcher, and these were serious results of my work. But even my research, I realize, has been guided. I mean, all of us are just working for spirit, and we don't know that.
Do you know what you just did? You proved to people listening around the world that there are honest lawyers. Because
well, I'm not sure about that.
Oh.
We have to keep up our standards.
Well, and you do that very well as a member of your profession, and I highly admire you for it. Because you are one of the most honest people that I know.
Thank you, dear. Actually, I'm not a traditional lawyer, partly for that reason. I found that what I do as a lawyer is to advise the owners of closely held businesses, and I love these people. I mean, I should really retire, but I don't want to do it because I love these people so much. I love being part of their lives. I love helping them. But I don't go to court. I don't do any of that lawyery stuff.
Lawyery stuff.
The stuff you don't like lawyers for. I don't do that stuff.
What was it like when you first realized that you were a tool that was being used by a higher power to get the message across to the masses?
Well, it comes to you gradually. I mean, the story that you mentioned about the titles is to me was one of my first indications I really wasn't driving this train. But I really wanted to call The Fun of Dying for Dummies. But of course, you can't use dummies. That's owned. So, what about Dying for Idiots? Well, my publisher didn't like that title at all. But I didn't know what to do about it. So one morning I woke up and there were 3 titles in my mind. And this is when we meet with our spirit guides at night. I knew that. I knew that's where it must have come from. But the 3 titles were The Fun of Dying, The Fun of Staying in Touch, and The Fun of Growing Forever. And I knew even then that Growing Forever was not supposed to come out till 2017. We're going to beat it by a few months. But I didn't know what the second and third were about. I just thought, The Fun of Dying, that's a lot better than Dying for Idiots. So that's what we used. But The Fun of Staying in Touch, one day, suddenly I realized it was time to start writing it. It's about spirit communication, how they talk to us, how we talk to them. And we've just had to put in a new appendix because of all the wonderful electronic communication that's now beginning to happen. And Growing Forever, I always thought would be about more stuff about the afterlife, but instead it's about spiritual development, how to make this your last lifetime. Even if you're old, there are things you can do that will make this your last lifetime.
My dear friend, you and I have to take a break for the news at the bottom of the hour. Please stand by, and once again, congratulations on all the lives that you touch in such a positive way. And thanks very much for being on the show tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. The door is always open for you, my dear. Exonation, Roberta Grimes is our very special guest this hour, www.robertagrimes.com. And Roberta and I will be back on the other side of this news break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
Founder, President of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com. From the Canadian News Network, I'm Rob McConnell. Beautician Sarah Bryan, 28 of Wakefield, England, who garnered world notoriety last year when she introduced a wearable dress made of 3,000 Skittles, returned this summer with a wearable skirt and bra made of donated human hair, a substantial amount of that, she said, pubic hair. She admits having had to work with an eye mask, breathing mask, and thick gloves out of fear of donors' hygiene habits. More conventionally, designer Van Tron of Brooklyn, New York, won the 12th annual Wearable Toilet Paper Wedding Dress Design Contest in New York City in June with a $10,000 prize from sponsors Charman's and Ripley's Believe It or Not. Attorney Chris Dyer convinced a jury in La Crosse, Wisconsin in June that there was reasonable doubt about what his client was doing in a family's basement when he was discovered pants down, perched doggy style over the family's golden retriever. Client Daniel Reinsvold, a stranger in the house, told the jury that he has an intestinal disorder that makes him subject to emergencies. What Reinsvold was doing was apparently perfectly clear to the resident's 17-year-old daughter, who discovered the scene and reported Reinsvold screwing Cooper. And a vet said later that Cooper showed signs of trauma and rape. Nonetheless, Reinsvold was convicted only of trespass and disorderly contact. British student Joshua Browder, 19, created an easy-to-use computer app to help drivers fight parking tickets they believe unjust, and now reports that users have won 160,000 cases out of 250,000 cases, all in London and New York City, by following his question and answer chat interface at donotpay.co.uk. Browder said he was motivated to develop the app, which as of now is still free of charge, after himself getting about 30 tickets he says he did not deserve. A bicycle thief was stopped on June 10 when the bike's owner and several other people chased him from the Walmart parking lot in Eagle Point, Oregon, drawing the attention of a passing rider on horseback, Roberta Grimes, who joined the chase and moments later, according to the report in Portland's The Oregonian, lassoed the man and restrained him until police arrived. Not many DUI stops result in attempts to locate the suspect's chastity belt key, but the May 14th sobriety checkpoint stop of Curtis Edom, 35, in Clinton, Tennessee, certainly did. Edom was outfitted in red mesh see-through hose, according to the police report, with the ribbon tied in his goatee, and also a little skirt, perhaps a tutu, when he told officers that he needed his key, which happened to be on a necklace worn by his passenger, a highly intoxicated 44-year-old woman. Thus, Edom was unable to unlock and remove the chastity belt, which had been attached to his penis. There was also a handgun, illegal in the state of Tennessee for an intoxicated person to carry. Charges in this case are still pending. In May, a 16-year-old boy in Lakewood, Washington, not only used Facebook to set up a marijuana dealer robbery, one of many people lately to incriminate themselves on social media, but during the robbery itself accidentally shot himself in the groin and femoral artery, requiring life-saving 7-hour surgery. With stories of the strange, the weird, and the bizarre, from the Canadian News Network in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, I'm Rob McConnell. Thomas Jefferson was a Burgess of 27 when he met Martha Wales Skelton, a 22-year-old widowed heiress who was fondly called Patty by her family. They were married on January the 1st, 1772, and they took up residence in a cabin on the building site on top of a Virginia mountain that Thomas had named Monticello. As Thomas and Patty slowly built their first version of the great house at Monticello, the Revolutionary War was heating up. Patty, with difficulty, bore 5 children, but only 2 girls survived. Thomas's political career developed to the point where he was often away from home, but after he authored and signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he resolved never again to leave his wife. He was elected the governor of Virginia, just as that state became the Revolution's last battleground. The Revolutionary War ended in 1781, and Thomas gladly retired altogether to my family, my farm, and my books. But Patty continued to want to bear her treasured husband a son, and late in the summer of 1782, she died of kidney failure at the age of 33, 4 months after having born yet another girl. Thomas was so devastated by her death that he never remarried. He mourned her for the rest of his life, even as he helped to frame the peace in France and then became the first Secretary of State, the second Vice President, and the third President of the United States. This story is true. Thomas Jefferson was such an obsessive letter writer and record keeper that we know where he was and what he was doing nearly every day of his adult life. Every significant thing he says in My Thomas comes from his contemporary writings. My Thomas by Roberta Grimes is now available at Barnes & Noble, Costco, Target, Books A Million, Hudson Booksellers, Kmart, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, CVS, and online at Amazon.com. You can visit Roberta Grimes online at www.robertagrimes.com. Listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Got some very exciting news today that I would like to share with you, the members of the Exo Nation. Just let me get the piece of paper. All right, listen to this, Exo Nation. The X Zone Radio Show is now on iHeartRadio, and iHeartRadio has 85 million registered users. So there you go. The X Zone Nation is growing again, thanks to you, our listeners, and thanks to wonderful guests like my friend Roberta Grimes, who is with us this hour. Her website is www.robertagrimes.com. You know, I'm so used to saying X Zone Radio that it comes out inadvertently, but it's robertagrimes.com. Welcome back, dear friend.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for talking about my friend Thomas. That was really nice.
Well, we play that commercial throughout the day.
Wow. People must get sick of it.
No, because we're on air 24 hours a day on certain channels. So it's part of our regular programming because I believe in you as an author. I believe in you as a person. And I know that you're out there helping people, and the mission, my mission in the X Zone and everything we do is to be a positive influence and to help people and to try and turn this world around.
Oh, bless you for that, sir. That is what we all need to be doing now.
And you know what? I think the light is finally coming on.
Yes.
So many years, my dear friend, it seemed that most of the people had the wheel going around, but the hamster was dead.
That's true.
But
actually, and some people have said to me, well, there's all this negative stuff going on, from ISIS to shooting the police. And
it was awful.
Doesn't this mean they've stopped raising the consciousness of the planet? We're told, actually, it means the opposite.
Exactly.
These are the forces of negativity trying to keep it from happening.
Let me ask you something, if you don't mind. You're in Austin, Texas. How are the people in the state of Texas handling the grief of the senseless shooting of those police officers in Dallas?
Well, Texas is a really big state.
Right.
It's like 7 or 8 New Englands would fit into Texas, and Dallas is quite a distance from Austin. But we are worried about our own police, obviously. There are new measures being taken to protect the police in Austin, and we all support that. We're doing everything we can to. I mean, I've heard of minor incidents, but I really think this is one of those things which is just going to go away when we stop. We don't glorify it, but we give these people attention for doing despicable things. It's true of the terrorists. It's true of the people who are attacking the police. I mean, we've just got to stop glorifying negative actions like that. But nobody should know their names.
Exactly.
I mean, nobody should say anything about these people. They're beneath contempt to do these things. As
a member of the media, I am ashamed of the way the media gloats on the gory, the negative, because now the motto of the media is, if it don't bleed, it don't lead.
Yeah.
And they're money mongers. They're inciting, in my opinion, they're inciting a lot of the riots that we see, the protests that we see, the actions against the police, because it puts people in the prime, in the spotlight. It gets them on every newscast.
Yes, and in point of fact, there is not a racial bias at all. In fact, statistically, they're less likely to shoot a black person who is committing a crime or who has than a white person. They're very, very careful not to do that because they're worried about backlash. But it's a tragic fact that in this country, many of the people who do these sorts of crimes, in fact, are black. Yeah. That's not their fault. It's the fault that President Johnson took away all the fathers. And when you can't raise boys or girls without fathers. That's right. Something which only now, I don't understand why, 50 years later, people are noticing that that's probably a problem and they're going to fix it. But it's 3 generations of young black children have grown up without fathers in the home. That no wonder we have the problems we have.
Do you know why it took 50 years?
Why?
The wheel was going round and the hamster was dead.
Well, it's so. In 1960, the census showed that the number of intact black families, this is in the U.S., was substantially the same as the percentage of intact white families. By 1980, of course, in 1965, we had the war on poverty, and they started basically paying women to kick their husbands out of the house. Poor women had no choice in some cases but to get rid of their husbands. By 1980, 70% of those families had broken up. The fathers were gone, and they've never come back. You can't raise children without fathers.
No, that's why God gave you a mother and a father.
Yes, yes. So it's society's problem. It's not the problem of these poor kids who don't have. They're rootless. They're rudderless.
They're victims of circumstance.
Yes.
And I hate to say it, but these kids were brought into a world that their parents weren't ready for.
No, it's
sad.
It really is very sad. But the point I was making is it's not the police. The police are very careful to try not to react that way, especially if it's a black perpetrator. But it would be so much better if we would give these people the good schools, intact families, the basic right every child has to that kind of a decent upbringing. And that's where I would hope we'd start putting the focus, because that's the only way to solve the problem, the only way.
My producer, Craig, brought me in this news story. He heard what we were talking about, and here's the story. A black therapist who was trying to calm an autistic patient in the middle of a street says he was shot by police even though he had his hands in the air and repeatedly told them that no one was armed. The moments before and after the shooting were recorded on a cell phone video and released to the local media. The video shows Charles Kinsey lying on the ground with his arms raised, talking to his patient, and police throughout the standoff with officers who appeared to have surrounded them. He said, as long as I've got my hands up, they're not going to shoot me. So there you go. They did shoot him, and that happened today.
Yeah. No, I had seen that story too. He was shot in the leg. Fortunately, he was going to be okay.
I think what we have to do, Roberta, and I'd like your opinion on this, is get rid of the colors.
Yes, that's kind of basic.
Yeah, whether you're white.
There's no genetic difference at all.
Exactly.
Without the skin, you can't tell someone's race is. It's totally meaningless. You're absolutely right. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, it's just... let's get rid of the colors. We're all people. Our skin is just like a cover on a book. We never judge a book by its cover, so why do we judge people?
Yes, my theory is that if instead of breaking up all those families, they had decided to give a free education through college to every descendant of slavery in the United States, just would have had to do it for 2 generations. By 1980, it wouldn't have been a case where all those families were broken up. Not only would they be intact, but people would be saying, oh boy, a black family's moving in. That's going to dress up the neighborhood, because we'll bet they're college graduates, right?
And then, I don't know if you watch daytime TV. You're probably too busy, but I know
I don't watch any TV anymore. I don't have any time.
When I go to grab a coffee, I pass through the... where everybody has their coffee and their lunches, and there's a TV in there. And there are some of these shows, like Maury Povich's show, The Maury Show. And you've got these throngs of people who are going on national television undergoing DNA testing to find out who the mother or who the father of the child is. You're
kidding.
It's crazy. It is truly crazy. And I often wonder what Jesus thinks when he looks down and he sees what's going on. And then I wonder, well, wait a second. How would we treat Jesus? Because he isn't white. He doesn't have blonde hair. He doesn't have blue eyes. He's from the Middle East.
Yeah.
Would we profile Jesus as a possible threat to Homeland Security?
I don't don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it is so tragic. And yeah, he would be appalled. Well, I'm sure he is. He's, of course, watching everything. I'm sure he's appalled at the way we treat one another, because it's people profess to be Christians and then they treat one another in such despicable ways. One of the things that is amazing to me is how few Christians actually read the Bible.
Yeah. Or you have the Christians who do selective reading of the Bible.
Yes, well, that's true.
Yeah.
That's what they do. You're right.
You're
right. The Old Testament is people are notorious for that.
Oh, sure.
In the Old Testament, we're told that we can't cut our beard or cut our hair. We can't, of course, eat pork, shellfish. We can't wear blended fabrics, no fashionable blends, nothing. You can't do any of those things. And if your daughter is not a virgin on her wedding night, she must be stoned to death before the parents' doorstep. How many people are following the gospel, the Bible, for heaven's sake? That's all Old Testament stuff. They don't do that. But then when they come across something that says a man shouldn't lie with another man as with a woman, wow, they're going to beat people over the head with that one, right?
They sure will.
But if they're clean shaven, then they're not following. They're being selective in their reading of the Bible. That's wrong. They're basically saying they're hypocrites.
Which they are.
Which they are.
Let's face it. They have 6 days to sin and 1 day to repent. Great system.
Oh, wow.
So
it's unfortunate, and I've been a very good Christian all my life. It's very hard for me to say this, but the religion has utterly lost its way, and that's one big reason why the world is in such a mess. Christians should be leading us toward the truth, and instead they're leading us into blindness.
Which raises the question, have we as a society outgrown religion?
Yes. Yeah, I don't think that's even hard to answer.
No.
Yes.
But how many people would actually say that?
Look, I think you cannot read the Gospels without having a strong suspicion that Jesus came to abolish religions and to teach us to relate to God one-on-one.
Exactly.
That's what he says in the Gospels. That's, again, ignored.
When you look at the Old Testament, it seems like there's two gods. You've got the God of the Old Testament and the God of the New Testament. The God of the Old Testament is very vengeful, very spiteful, very demanding. You know, like what? He destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. He flooded the earth except for one family. You know, how many Egyptians did he kill in the Red Sea? You know, and how many people did he kill when the angel of death came down? Then the God of the New Testament, loving, caring. And I'll tell you something. If you look at God, at the way he takes care of his children, I'm telling you, I'm glad that I'm not God. I'm glad that I don't follow his example, the God of the Old Testament, that is.
Here's the big irony. The big irony is that we have in fact discovered that God is real. We can demonstrate there is abundant evidence that God is real, and we know what God is.
Yeah.
God is nothing like the God of the Old Testament, nothing like the God that Christians worship. God is real and much more loving and much more powerful than any Christian I have ever known has thought. So why don't we talk to the real God? Because the real God loves us so much and does not blame us for a thing.
You see,
already forgave us before we ever did anything.
I think that the biggest hint in the Bible is in the very beginning of Genesis, when it says, and God said, let us, plural, create man in our, plural, image again. I think that, because if we take that verse, let us create man in our image, in our likeness. If we are created in God's image and his likeness, that means we each have God within us.
Yes, but it's even more striking than that. What the afterlife evidence does is to show us that we are actually part of God. The only thing that exists is the mind of God, and our consciousness, our mind, is part of the mind of God. We never leave God. We are inextricably part of the consciousness that continuously brings forth the universe. This is something Max Planck discovered almost 100 years ago. who is the father of quantum mechanics. I mean, this is all basic stuff, and it's so much better than any religion has ever told us. The fact that most people don't know it and feel comfortable and joyful in it is really tragic.
I just received this message from one of our listeners. Rob, what does the Bible have to do with the paranormal? Here's my...
Everything!
Exactly. Because there is so much paranormal activity within the Bible.
Oh, yes.
It, in my opinion, it is the number one source of paranormal activity. You have angels, you have miracles, you have, the resurrection, you have everything in there. So when I talk about the Bible, if I'm talking to a guest about religion, we're talking about the paranormal.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, and I mean, in fact, we now can validate using the afterlife evidence, using aspects of the Bible. We can cross-validate some things we could not do any other way. So the Bible is very useful to people who are doing this research because it is ancient, independent corroboration of some of the things we're finding out now, especially in the Gospels. Quite amazing.
How do you think...
There's only one normality, only one reality. I mean, that's my own radio show is called Seek Reality because that's what we all should be doing. There's one reality. The fact that we've got religious people and scientists and all, people that are all going in different directions with their own views of things doesn't change the fact it's all one. It's all one. It's all normal. Paranormal is normal, actually.
It is. It is. Spirituality. I believe that we, like you were saying, I believe we're all connected. We are all one. In the Bible it says, am I my brother's keeper? You're damn right you are.
Yes, you are your brother, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So, we kind of went on a little tangent there, but I'm glad we did.
It's a fun tangent, though.
It is. And I think that if there was more open conversation like you and I are having tonight, if the questions were raised and they were talked about in a rational manner where, my religion is better than yours wasn't part of the conversation, that we would get along that much better. Because the only problem I can understand or I see as being the number one problem is we don't respect each other's religion. We don't respect each other's beliefs. We're so cocksure that we're number one. The other guy across the street, he's sure that he's number one. And look what's happening between Islam and the other religions. This is something that has been going on for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. This is nothing new.
Yeah.
The Crusades, we were supposed to be the good guys. Were we the good guys or were we the bad guys? Because we were invading their land and they were, just like I could never understand, Roberta, how come in the TV shows the cowboys were the good guys? They were the invaders.
True. It's true. No, I think that you're right in saying religions have been enormously divisive. And to find out now that none of them is right, but indeed God is real and God is the only thing that exists and God loves us more than any religion has ever told us. So the news is all good except all the religions have been fighting essentially over nothing because they're all wrong.
As always, my dear friend, time goes by so fast, I decided to knock out 2 commercial breaks because I value, I enjoy our conversations. We get a message out there. What are your final thoughts for the X-Zone Nation tonight, Roberta?
I would like everyone listening to know you are a powerful, eternal being. You never began, you never will end. You are part of the infinite consciousness that brings forth the universe. You are perfect and perfectly loved.
That is very heavy and very powerful. Now, tell us about the release of your next book.
Well, The Fun of Growing Forever will come out in the middle of August, and it's already set to be translated into 33 languages.
Wow.
We're really going worldwide with these books now, and it is about how to use the teachings of Jesus in the Gospels are actually a system. It's a simple spiritual growth system that you can use those teachings if you do it correctly to within months raise your own spiritual vibration to the point where you probably will not have to come back. It's easy, it's fun, and you don't have to even learn to meditate. And that's what it's about. That's what the book is about. How you can grow forever in the happiest possible way.
I love it. Roberta, I want to thank you ever so much for joining us tonight, taking time out of your busy schedule to be part of the X Zone Nation, and I cherish you as an author, I cherish you as a guest, but most of all, I cherish you as a friend.
Oh, sending you lots of love, Rob. I feel the same way.
Take care of yourself, Roberta. My regards to your family.
Thank you. Same here.
Blessings, my dear.
Good night.
Good night. X Zone Nation, Roberta Grimes has been our guest this hour. www.robertagrimes.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Coming up next, Charles Stansberg is going to be joining us. We're going to be talking about animal mutilations. He's investigated animal mutilations. He is the director, one of the directors of MUFON. We've had the pleasure of having him on the show before. A very interesting gentleman with a lot of information under his belt that he's willing to share. Once again, on the other side of the news, Charles Stansberg. I'll be back after we listen to some words from our fine sponsors, as well as the news here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.